could be Raz Simone's theme music.
I haven't listened to any of his work. Have you?
The warlord who is the de facto head of CHAZ, the autonomous state in Seattle. He could have somebody like, and I'm going to get you sucker, somebody could carry it in a boombox right behind him as he walks around the 6-block territory with AK-47.
I like calling it the Republic of CHAZ.
Tucker Carlson offered this on the preeminent warlord of the Flux State, CHAZ, in Seattle.
It took barely a day for the nation of CHAZ to get its first warlord. And it was quite a promotion for him. Just a week ago, Raz Simone was an up-and-coming rapper. He was also a superhost for Airbnb. Now, he's a monarch. In videos taken within CHAZ, Simone is seen patrolling the area with his allies. They have guns. They're declaring, "We're the police now." In one clip, the monarch's men assault a citizen of CHAZ for spray painting graffiti inside the zone. Just like the mafia, CHAZ doesn't put up with nonsense like that in their own neighborhood.
That's right. His Highness Raz Simone in that incident said this, declare this.
We are the police of this community now. We are the leaders of this community now.
That is so frightening to me. It seems surreal that this is happening in America.
And, of course, among their demands, and the number of demands shifts depending on which posting you're looking at. There's 5, there's 30. They're different. They're the same. By the way, and if you haven't read the What We Believe at Black Lives Matter, you should really go to blacklivesmatter.com and read it, because you have these cowardly politicians across the political spectrum attending these Black Lives Matter get-togethers, rallies, whatever, because that's the way I show I care about black people. It's the most ridiculous thing. These poltroons. The Black Lives Matter is just a bunch of what they believe, their own words, is a bunch of neo-Marxist twaddle that spends as much time talking about trans as it does black people's interests. Not that they're different, I mean, at the core in terms of economic opportunity, healthcare, education, so forth, but it's all identitarian pablum. It's all Marxism dressed up as racial justice. Just remarkable. And so the defund, disband, dismantle police movement carries on. You had Portland officials cut 6% from their city's police budget, which is a victory for police in that wackadoodle city. The warlords, the monarch, Simone, and those occupying that 6-block area known as CHAZ, they're calling for a 50% cut in the Seattle police force budget. You know what's happening in Minneapolis. You've heard what Garcetti and de Blasio are planning to do with respect to budget cuts for their police departments in those big cities. And Lori Lightfoot in Chicago has taken what those other big city mayors are doing under advisement.
And can you imagine if this happens here? I mean, I don't think they'd be able to take over Michigan Avenue, but State Street, get themselves a 4-block area there, have demands, want food, free food delivered.
It's about the end of policing, or the completely recasting it as some sort of social service organization in the Marxist sense, not a law enforcement body. That's going to turn out to be a problem. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Cory Mills, a U.S. Army combat veteran, founder and CEO of PACEM Solutions International and PACEM Defense LLC. Cory, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks.
So you wrote a piece at foxnews.com. Want more crime and innocent people killed? Then defund the police. Well, that's clearly not the attitude of these big city mayors. What don't they understand?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me, and given the fact that Mayor Lightfoot should know all too well about, criminality and the fact that the city can run rampant should you not have proper police force, I'm actually completely puzzled or bemused at why there isn't further action. I mean, you've got the mayor of Seattle who, instead of identifying what's going on in the nation of CHAZ,
Gosh.
is basically saying, "Oh, it's nothing more than a simple block party. We have these all the time." Well, I'm not familiar with any block parties that we've ever gone to
Where's the
where
bouncy
they take
house?
over police precincts. Yeah, and we start going ahead and vandalizing. And I love one of her statements, which was really, really funny. Speaking of the mayor of Seattle, she was referencing like the businesses and things like that. She says, "Well, aside as reports of vandalism, property damage, and the occasional fight, there's no real serious incidents." So that's great. So you're saying that, vandalism, property damage, and, assault, which is all criminality, no big deal.
And the Seattle police chief said that there's rapes, robberies, and all sorts of violent acts, but they don't go in, I guess, unless something's on fire or someone's been shot. Or what are the rules of CHAZ?
Active shooter.
Active shooter.
That's it.
And again, I mean, that's your metric, that's your bar for when police should be called in. Is, oh, well, we have a couple of rapes and things like this. No big deal. Let's just go ahead and allow criminality. This is why I like the fact that the president has actually stood for law and order. This is, and when we're talking about earlier, I could hear you saying about this warlord of CHAZ, this Simone. If he truly wants to be a political figure, he wants to be a community leader. We have things for this. It's called democracy. Go run for a city council position. Go run for an elected, official position, and then go ahead and push your message forward. Trying to hold hostage a 6-block area and trying to call it a protest or a right for freedom. Look, I'm all for awareness. As a military veteran, my job is to go out and to fight for democracy, fight for our liberties, and fight to protect all the things that they're standing for with regards to First Amendment rights. But what I didn't fight for is to enable criminality to go completely unnoticed, and for the police force and mayors of these cities to turn a blind eye.
Well, this is since you're military, this sort of calls to issue again whether or not President Trump should consider using the military, and perhaps in a situation like Seattle, where the local authorities have abandoned its city center remarkably. It's pretty clear, and John Yoo, who's a University of Cal Berkeley law professor, makes the point again that under Article 1, Section 8, under the Insurrection Act of 1807, the president clearly has the power. Whether he should use it is another matter, and this has been debated since the beginning of the unrest. This is really sort of unique in Seattle. But I wonder if the mayor is fine with it. She wants to, call it a festival, and if the governor is going to pretend like he doesn't know anything about it, then that's the chart that Seattle and Washington State have chosen for themselves, and the federal government should stay out of it.
I certainly can see the president coming forward if the mayor and the governor decides to do nothing. I think that, whether they're willing to accept lawlessness or not, the people of, citizens of America actually, elect a person into office to ensure they uphold their freedoms and liberties, and one of those, the protection of Americans. When you can't walk anywhere in there, and these elected officials that are in Seattle and within Washington State are just unwilling to do something, it forces the president's hand. The president has continued to make what are considered to be unfavorable or unpopular decisions. That's been always to the benefits of Americans and always on our behalf. So should he need to utilize this 1807 Insurrection Act, which, by the way, you'll hear a lot of the left-wing media go ahead and say, well, this is a 200-year-old law. Well, guess what? We also have a 200-plus-year-old Constitution. Should we ignore that as well? The reality is that the Insurrection Act has been utilized by JFK, LBJ. It was utilized by President George H.W. Bush in '92 during the riots. It's not something which has sat shelved and, collecting dust for 200 years and, is not at the president's access.
Do you feel that this is going to happen in other big cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago?
I'm really hopeful it's not. I think my biggest panic at this point will be not necessarily the riots growing into these other cities, but what happens whenever Derek Chauvin's final verdict is read. If he's convicted of second or third degree as opposed to first degree, I think that, law enforcement and the government needs to be prepared for the outcome of that.
Well, right. I mean, he's charged with second degree, but yeah, I get what you're saying. If he's convicted for a lesser included charge, and that's met as somehow he didn't get the punishment he deserves, right? Exactly. And frankly, I mean, you could have it the other way too, where it's celebratory that turns into violence. They convict him on the greatest charges he's facing, even sentence him to the max, and then people celebrate, and that's an opportunity for people who have ill motives to do ill things. I wanted to get
Well,
your
look, we've already seen where this movement's been hijacked so many times that it's not about movement, it's not about motive anymore. It's literally, Antifa and all the rest utilizing this as an opportunistic moment.
I want to get your reaction to this, particularly given my prefatory remarks to our discussion on Black Lives Matter, which is really just atrocious. The idea that you can't stand in solidarity with peaceful, great Black American citizens if you don't embrace this organization that's about 8 years old is so absurd to me. But okay. In 2016, just a quarter of Americans, 27%, told Yahoo YouGov surveyors that they approved of Black Lives Matter. Today, it's 57% of Americans say they have a favorable view of the movement.
I mean, again, here's my issue where the Black Lives movement falls flat. I can understand if it was about raising the awareness of all Black lives who have been lost as a result of murder and heinous crimes. But the reality is that, what happened to George Floyd, I'm the first to say that it was a murder charge, in my opinion. I don't think that the tactics that were utilized were necessary for the period of time that it was utilized. But at the same time, what about 77-year-old David Dorn's life? Was the retired police captain's life didn't matter. So how do you say that Black lives matter, but yet, not his Black life? So I think that, the movement just falls flat. The whole narrative of it, I mean, it just becomes a bit of a spin, movement, in my opinion, for those who just want to say, well, it's time for us to protest and cause anarchy. This life matter, but hey, that one doesn't. It's playing God, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's even, let me be specific here, from their What We Believe page. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. What does that have to do with Black Lives Mattering? What does that have to do with police brutality? What does that have to do with most of the discussion that's ongoing? You have to understand that Black Lives Matter is a veneer meant to disguise this neo-Marxist claptrap. That's who's really behind this. It's Marxists of all skin colors, and that's just being obscured. And as I said, unfortunately, the political class and the corporate class is full of poltroons who are unwilling to do anything other than follow meekly along with the mob.
Completely agree. I mean, the whole movement itself, I mean, it's been switched back and forth, and it's for this reason, it's for that reason, it's for community outreach, and the issue is that we have so many in government who continue to pander to this. You've got, Democrats who are wearing the kente cloth and taking a knee saying that they want to raise awareness. Let's look at the facts. They're not there to raise awareness. They're there to raise DNC funding. Right. And it's just, people are actually playing right into this narrative.
He is Cory Mills, U.S. Army combat veteran, founder and CEO of PACEM Solutions International, PACEM Defense LLC. He's got a good op-ed at foxnews.com. I'll tweet out at Dan Proft. Cory, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Presenting a good appearance is everything, a direct reflection of your business. But now you also need to ensure your employees and customers that you're providing a safe environment in which to work and do business. To keep and stay clean, team up with High PSI, Chicago's leading source on industrial cleaning equipment, accessories, and service. High PSI sells clean with the biggest selection and highest quality of industrial cleaning and pressure washing equipment in the Midwest. And now selling Vital Oxide, a hospital-grade, safe EPA-registered disinfectant cleaner. This product can be applied with a spray, wipe, mister, or electrostatic foggers that actually wrap surfaces with disinfectants or sanitizers. Vital Oxide kills MERS, SARS, flu, and COVID. High PSI for industrial cleaning solutions. Keep your business clean with accessories and supplies, repair service, and rentals. Call now, 630-893-0777 or highpsi.com. High PSI, they sell clean.